Our next speaker, my children just watch a video for her in Instagram about the neglected Jews, the Jews that media doesn't want to hear about, that they all exist. I'm a very big fan of her. I would like to welcome Media Officer of Jewish Voice for Labour, Naomi Wimborne-Idrissi.
Thank you, Mariam. Thank you very much. Yeah, I want to follow what others have said today about the way the mainstream media has failed in its duty to tell the world what is really going on in Gaza and in the West Bank as well. Let's not forget that the rest of Palestine is also being subjected to ethnic cleansing. As Jewish activists, several of us here, including Andrew, of course, we've had to help people to confront the calumny that the people who are marching for Palestine and marching for a ceasefire and marching to stop arm Israel are motivated by hatred of Jews. And as you've heard from Andrew, and I'm sure you've heard the message going out from people like myself and others so many times, there is just absolutely no truth in that. There are plenty of reasons to be marching for Palestine that have nothing to do with your attitude to the fact that the settler colonialists in Israel happen to be Jewish. There's a complicated history, but that's the simple message, isn't it? I'm increasingly feeling that the horror of what is going on in Gaza and the way that citizen journalists and our colleagues who are professional journalists have succeeded despite all the odds in getting the truth out is starting to turn the tide. Look what's happening in America. Look at the student movement that's building. Look at the way some commentators who were not previously willing to say a critical word about Israel are now expressing their horror and their amazement and their astonishment at what is going on. I woke up this morning to hear on the BBC, on the Today programme, an extremely moving report from one of the BBC's own journalists who has recently managed to get out of Gaza with his entire family, 5 children and his wife, Adnan El-Borsh. I don't know if some of you may actually know him. And his story was incredibly moving. Because it was the BBC, of course, and any mainstream outlet, they had to pepper his report with the sort of standard caveats, the Israeli excuses for the horrors that Adnan had witnessed. And it's quite amusing, so I thought in a grim sort of way, I thought I might pick out a few. Don't worry, I'm not going to read the whole thing, I'm just going to pick out a few examples. So Adnan's experience began immediately after October the 7th, when he was with his family in Khan Yunis, Jabalia camp in northern Gaza, where they lived. And very soon, things started to go badly wrong. He witnessed an appalling incident. Sorry, this is going to get complicated. Several pages here. Where he went to go to the market to get food because they knew that things were getting serious. Went to the market where he usually went to stock up with food. It was busy, others were doing the same thing. The area was bombed heavily just 10 minutes after he left. The entire place was destroyed, including the grocery store where he'd just done his shopping moments earlier. And he said, "I knew the faces of the shop owners. Many of them were among the dead." Amnesty International said of that incident that at least 69 people were killed and that it should be investigated as a war crime. What did the Israelis say? Well, first of all, they didn't respond to direct questions from the BBC about this. But throughout the war, Adnan said, it has insisted that its operation is targeting Hamas, which it says operates in civilian locations. And it says, quote, it strikes on military targets which are subject to relevant provisions of international law. There's too much here. I recommend going on to Reporting Gaza on the BBC website. To my surprise, it is really worth looking at. And it exposes what a journalist who survived experienced. He talks a lot about his colleagues who did not survive. There are horrors in that piece. It comes with a health warning. at the top of the item on the BBC website. I think I'm just going to leave it at that. We know what's going on there. We know that the lies that are being told about the protesters and about the civilian population, that they're somehow complicit in what happened on October the 7th. We know that the truth must be told, and you've heard it from more eloquent voices than mine here this evening. There are more brilliant speakers to come, thanks to Mariam and her colleagues' work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Naomi. Thank you very much.